There's people that are going to be watching this that may be in that position right now. And they want to get involved with sales, or maybe they are involved with sales, but they're right there in the middle of the road, or they're the bottom of the pack. And they've got just as much talent and just as much opportunity as you and I do. But for whatever reason, they're not quite ready yet. And I think one of the things that it takes is for you to be self-aware enough to recognize that you're not where you want to be and you've got some work to do, and to flip a switch, to become coachable, to become curious and intentional, and really forward with gathering information.
This is the Just Real Quick podcast, where we discuss how to succeed in the world of sales through confidence, discipline, and consistency. Are you ready to be intentional about creating more opportunities that lead to sales? Tune into this episode right now for the latest insights and strategies that will take your sales game to the next level. I'm your host, Jefferson K. Rogers.
Welcome back to another episode of Just Real Quick. Today in the studio, I got my guy, Mr. Ben Hough. Brand new to JKR Windows. This is his second full month here at JKR Windows. Last month, he had an incredible month. So we're going to get to know Mr. Ben Hough today a little bit, his background, his experience working with JKR Windows for the past couple of months, and just how did you have such an incredible month out of the gate in your very first month? So where did you get started in sales? Because I know this is your first go at replacement windows, right? And is it first go in home services?
Well, it's actually my second go in home replacement windows. I actually sold windows for a company called Instilling back in the 90s, back in the mid 90s.
I didn't know that.
And I actually left them because I was a mediocre carpenter at one time. And I was selling these windows for $1,000 a hole back then. And they did have the triple pane PBX and the easy clean feature.
In the 90s?
Back in the mid 90s, yes.
Smoke.
And this was in Spokane, Washington.
Okay.
So, and then I saw the install and I saw what the window looked after the install. And I'm thinking, a mediocre carpenter, I could have done a better job. And I lost my belief in the company and the product and what I was selling. So I left the company.
And how long were you working for them before that?
I would say 8 months by the time I saw one of the installs that I'd sold. Yeah. And I was doing quite well back then, believe it or not.
So now wait, you made it 8 months, and it's like were you picking up the signs in the rest of the culture throughout those 8 months that maybe this was something that other people were having the same crisis with?
Yeah, I mean, I could feel. And then once I saw the finished product, I just lost belief in the company and what I was doing, and I couldn't
100%.
sell with conviction. So I can't do something unless it's ethical or right. So
yeah,
I just quit.
Okay, so you did have a little experience in Windows specifically for about 8 months. Any other experience in home services?
I sold siding and roofs for a while. I've sold everything. Okay. I started out selling Kirby vacuum cleaners back in 93. And the culture was very similar to JKR Windows. So it was really easy for me to make that transition. I sold Love. It was for a company called Ideal Beginnings before they had the internet. We would, the women would get in free and the men would come in and do a videotape, and I would sell them packages, and then we'd get the guys in because the women were free to do it. So I
literally selling
love. Ideal Beginnings is what it was called. It was like a dating site or a match site
before the internet.
Before the internet. So yeah.
Wow. That is cool. So you've done all kinds of different sales.
Yeah.
So through all of your years of experience in different industries, what's been your favorite product to sell?
Oh, my favorite product. Well, I guess my best results were when I sold for Quest that turned into CenturyLink. I worked there for 13 years, and 11 out of the 13 years I made Circle of Excellence, which is the best of the best. You have to be in the top 2% of the company. So I guess the rewards for that company were the best. But as far as selling, I think I really enjoyed selling Kirby vacuum cleaners back in the day.
Really?
I don't know. It was just getting to people's homes, taking care of them, showing what I could do. And making the impossible.
And it's a great product.
And it was a great product, and it still is. So, I mean,
I grew up with Kirby vacuums around our house. And I don't know if I still have one. I still have one. We put it in our basement, and we still use that sucker. It's from 1993. Yeah. Passed down from generation to generation.
Yep. So that was what got me the sales bug to begin with. And I realized, the good Lord gave me a big mouth for a reason. And, I learned how to apply it.
Apply it in a way that can help you with your income.
As opposed to construction, where I used it for the wrong things.
Yeah. Yep. I was in construction a long time. So I can relate.
Yeah.
It was a colorful environment to be a part of in the construction industry. Mm-hmm. So now, how long since you got out of the construction industry and into sales?
Oh, I've been in sales since 93, and pretty much haven't left. Whether it was, direct sales.
30 years.
30 years, yes. 30 years.
Incredible.
I sold True Green Kevlar before it was True Green. I was with them for 9 years. I was in sales, selling lawn care, and then I was the marketing manager for 2 years. I was the marketing manager in Ogden, Utah.
Okay.
So worked my way up. And in every job that I've ever been in, I've worked my way up, whether it's construction or sales, worked my way up into management. So I always try to better myself and pass that on to others. I've been able to train people that have surpassed me in sales. And that's kind of an accomplishment, a good feeling as well.
Yeah, that's one of the goals of leadership, is to develop yourself in a way that you can pass on those skills and abilities and lessons that you've learned to somebody who may be even better than you. And there's something special to be said also about an environment and a culture that you can be a part of that encourages that kind of training and leadership and incentivizes it properly.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely. And that's a reward in and of itself. I mean, granted, you may be a little bit, they did better than me, but you can take that pride that, you helped develop them and get them to that point to create success in someone else. So
yeah, I love that. I love that. That's part of my story in developing JKR Windows, because I was a mediocre salesperson. I just loved this business model and I loved being able to take care of customers. And now we have, you, for example, putting up those big numbers last month, and several other people in this company that have put up way bigger numbers than I was ever capable of doing. So it's cool to have that model, be able to help other people see success and people that are way better than me. So now this month, you're having another amazing month. One of the things that I've noticed about salespeople, and I'm sure you have over the years, is when people have great months, a lot of times the next month is a little relaxed and they let off the gas a little bit. Yeah. But this month, you're staying consistent. Like, you're having another incredible month that's on pace for like one of the best months still of any of the salespeople in this company.
The thing of it is some people get complacent where you're satisfied with what you've done. Because literally, I've made enough money in that first month that I could skate or coast the rest of the year and be financially fine and still have money into next year. I don't have a lot of overhead or expenses or things like that. I really just go for helping the customer, doing the right thing, enjoying my job. And I really don't consider it a job. It's not work. I don't go out there thinking, no, it's another day's work. I really actually enjoy meeting people, talking to them, and getting that satisfaction of helping them. And then the money's just a residual. It's a byproduct of helping other people. So,
I love that.
And the money's great. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I'd be lying to you saying that wasn't great, but it isn't the only thing that motivates me.
Sure. And what it also does is it makes it easier. You were saying that this is not a job. And if it was perceived as a job to you, you wouldn't be able to put that type of enthusiasm and conviction into going out there every day to help people.
Right.
So you've got to have the right type of environment to be a part of. Leadership has a lot to do with it, the product, but then culture has a lot to do with it as well.
Most
and what we built here is not just about, pounding the pavement, putting up the numbers, and it's all about the bottom line. There's a lot more to it. And over time, what I learned about this company that I built from the ground up was that it was the things that interested me is what the company evolved into. And we talk a lot now about JKR Windows being a personal development company. And we just so happen to sell Windows. That's just the vehicle. But first, we're a personal development company. So from your, 2 months, like a little over 2 months you've been here now from the beginning, tell us about what your perspective is versus other companies you've worked for, and how that's played a role in your ability to go out there and produce at a high level.
Well, most companies that you go to, whether it be sales or anything, they'll give you the initial training and then they're like, go, get out there and go do it. You've got the initial training and that's it. With JKR, it's been an ongoing training always. And I've always got resources. I can always talk to Andres, Joel, Obi, yourself, anyone that I need to, Brooks. to get additional training or additional knowledge that I need. In previous jobs, there wasn't always that venue to go over and get that additional information. And the fact that you've got ongoing training is fantastic. Back in the day, I listened to Zig Ziglar, Tom Hawkins, Ernie Villanueva, and a few other ones. And the difference is with Grant, it's been kind of like a refresher course. I hate to say it. I mean, don't, without sounding cocky or anything, I always say that I've forgotten more about sales than most people will ever know. Sure. Present company excluded, of course. Yeah. But with Grant, it's a refresher course, and the other aspect of it is technology. Back then, I didn't have technology. So right now, technology is like my best friend. It used to be my worst enemy. Yeah. Right. So it's about me making my weakest point my strongest. I've always fumbled around with computers, never really been into them. And now it helps you be faster, quicker, more streamlined, more accurate, on time, scheduling, everything. If you can integrate technology into sales, because sales hasn't changed. Really, we're back when Zig Ziglar was doing it 50, even before I was born.
Same type of philosophies.
But now you can FaceTime someone, right? But you still have to have sales ability, but you can FaceTime them, across the country or wherever you want to be. But sales itself hasn't changed, but technology has. So me incorporating technology into my already sales ability has really helped me develop and excel and do much better, be more efficient, quicker, faster, professional. Yeah. I mean, you name it. It's really made a big difference.
I know that it wasn't the easiest for you to pick up either.
No.
So is this your first time working with a company that implements technology like we do, or have you had some experience in the past doing it as well?
This is the first time. I mean, when I sold for, let's say, CenturyLink, of course I had a computer system, but I would learn that program. So I could learn a program, I'm smart, but that's the only thing that I knew. With this one, there's so many different things. There's so many different programs. There's so many different apps to use. Yeah. Just simple things like downloading a contract and using the paperclip and sending it. I had to have Jared show me how to do it, right? And now that I do it, it's like, oh gosh, that's so easy. But to someone like me that resisted, I guess, technology, to finally embrace it, those are just little small accomplishments. And I feel myself getting better and better all the time with it, and less afraid, less apprehensive of using the technology and letting technology work for you instead of against you. Because before it used to, I think, work against me because I just didn't grasp it or didn't want to grasp it, I should say. Yeah,
it was almost like you didn't have to. It hadn't gotten to that stage yet where you didn't have to. And it wasn't going to make a big enough impact in your ability to sell or be organized or be efficient that you were willing to go out of your way to learn it.
Right.
But here it was like, this is what our whole process relies on, is this technology. And what's really cool is that we're just getting started with these technologies. With AI and the Salesforce platform and our door knocking tracking app, those continue to get better and better as we're developing new technology ourselves and putting just a ton of resources. So this version that you've gotten to know now even gets more intuitive, easier to use, more customer friendly, customer facing, and helps you do your job quicker and more efficiently.
They say you can't teach an old dog new tricks. That's not true. I've
proved them wrong, buddy.
Definitely learned a few new tricks with the computers and the technology. It's just made my job easier. I mean, it's helped generate revenue. I mean, it's made, taking care of the customers easier, better. I mean, I just can't. The list goes on and on as far as how it's benefited me.
So I know you've done a ton of sales training over the years. Zig Ziglar, one of my favorites. Tom Hopkins. What's the main book that he wrote that was about was it The Secrets? I can't remember what it was, but he was one of the very first sales trainers that I ever read a book about, and love his concepts. One of the things that sticks out to me that Tom Hopkins teaches is all of the no words, all of the red flag words that you never want to say in front of a customer. So with all your 30 years of experience, there's a lot of different people from different industries that watch this podcast, including all the members of JKR Windows. But what are some little nuggets that you've learned over the year that help you, that you apply on a regular basis, that may just seem like second nature to you now, but may help somebody that's a little earlier in the process?
Well, you're right. There's those buzzwords. You don't want to say word like contract. You'd want to say agreement. You wouldn't want to say payment. You'd want to say low monthly installments. You wouldn't want to say, I mean, there's a lot of different words that you can say, like cancellation. There's a 3-day rescission period, and it's not what you say, it's how you say it. So,
and do you find yourself using those often in your process?
In fact, they become like second nature.
Yeah.
Like you don't even realize.
That's what I mean.
You don't even realize that you're doing them. So when I say that it's a refresher course, I truly mean that. I mean, I've used sales my whole life without realizing it, I suppose. But yeah, those certain words. I mean, and then you'll catch yourself if you do say that. It's like, oh, shame on yourself, because you can catch yourself, and to be able to catch that, that's part of it as well. And then redirecting it, changing it, whatever the case may be.
So it's the same as like when you're using these filler words. Like when I first started, I still use like all the time. It's one of those ones that I'm aware of when I say it, and I'm trying to figure out like, how do I get around saying it all the time? But when I first started doing sales and speaking and coaching and mentoring and training people, I had a lot of filler words, and I would go back and listen to my recordings, and the ums and the uhs and the and the ands, and there's all these filler words. So it's the same awareness that you have to have, and your intentionality behind the message that you're trying to give, the confidence that you want to convey, and the type of energy that you bring to a conversation, especially in a sales circumstance, that you have to be so protective of. Like every time that you say like or or ah or and or a big, long, awkward pause, you're losing confidence. And that's how it would tally up in my head. Like I'm losing confidence in them. I got to get this reeled back in. Every time I accidentally said contract, or I was talking about cancellation in a way that I could tell the energy just drained out of here, it helped me better for next time. So how big of an impact does just the awareness have in your ability to continue to get better?
Oh, it's huge. I mean, they say, luck favors the prepared mind. Well, I'm not necessarily lucky. I prepared myself. I made sure to eliminate those ums and ahs. And if you do have them, you've got to do whatever you can do to get rid of them, however long it takes, whatever it takes.
Yeah.
And that's your difference between success and failure, or mediocrity. So
100%. Absolutely. Now, what would you say is, so for somebody getting started in sales, when I first started in sales, I had been around people my whole life that never did sales. My dad was a firefighter. He was a general contractor. I grew up building houses. I was around blue collar primarily type of environment. And I'm sure you were too early on when you were doing construction. And when people talk about sales, they talk about it in a way that it's like a cuss word. Mm-hmm. And it's something that they could never see themselves doing. And, there's so many of these things that play over in my head that were so hard for me to overcome early on to get involved with sales, because I'd been conditioned for most of my life to believe that sales was for scumbags and there were dishonest people. And the only way you can be successful is by taking advantage of people. And that it just wasn't this secure job or career that I could follow. So what did that play out like for you, and how did you overcome it, and how would you encourage people to take another look at sales?
Well, you're right. You're brought up to believe you've got to work, 6 days a week or 5 days a week, get a paycheck, get insurance, do that to succeed in life. And that sales, you're a swindler, or that's how they've been portrayed throughout life. So when I first got into sales back in the Kirby days, my whole family, you'll never make it. It was straight commission back then. Mm-hmm. But when I got in there and I saw the introduction, I saw what it was, I was wowed by the product. They didn't see what I saw. They didn't know what I knew. So I just blocked out all that negativity because they preached positivity. And I believe that your positivity, your attitude will determine your altitude. And I learned that a long time ago. And it's got to be in your own personal belief, because you're going to get outside people that are going to say all things, because whether they've experienced or not, they're just regurgitating stuff that's been said to them, right? They don't know. They haven't done it. They haven't walked the walk. So I was willing to let everything go. I'd done construction. I knew that those other jobs would be there. I was willing to branch out and to try something different. And it's something that I felt good about. And I had conviction about. I believed in the product. I believed in the company. And I went out and did it. And my very first paycheck selling Kirby vacuum cleaners back in 1993 was $3,500. And it shut everybody up. I'm like, look at this paycheck, right? And that was the time that I was, I guess, cocky or bragging or whatever. But I didn't feel like that. I was like, I had to prove to them, look, you guys are wrong. And I was right. I followed what I believed in. And this is what I ended up with. So, and after that, I'd done quite well, won awards, went on some trips with Kirby, and was promised a distributorship that fell through. But I mean, otherwise, I'd probably still be there today if I would have been a distributor.
No kidding.
So, yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I actually had a little stint with Kirby vacuums. And I wasn't at a place in my life where I was willing to commit and be responsible yet. But I felt the same way. Like it was a great product. I loved it. I believed in it. And it was, there a couple of guys that I've worked with were very high pressure. But for me, it was this first example of how you could be high pressure, but believe so much in what you're offering and the value that you're going to help this customer with, that you're doing them a disservice if you're not doing everything in your power to help them with this solution that makes sense for them.
Absolutely. I mean, I was so convinced and so confident that they couldn't tell me no. I mean, look at all this dirt in your home. I mean, look at these windows or whatever. We can relate it to our business laterally, equally. Look at this black mold in your window, whatever the case may be. I'd feel like I'm doing a disservice, showing all the problems, the broken seals, whatever's with their windows, and not leaving there without the sale, knowing that they're going to get their problems taken care of. Same thing when I was with Kirby or with lawn care, when they had weeds in their lawn. I couldn't go and give them an estimate and say, hey, I can't leave here without, taking care of these problems. And so you can relate it to any type of sales, no matter what it is or what I've done in the past. I can relate it to whatever.
But it's important that you have that to work with, because if all of a sudden you get exposure to a piece of that business that you're questioning now, and it doesn't align with you morally and ethically, and now it's like, I thought for the first 8 months that I was working here that I was like embodying this value that we brought customers and this, this helpsmith mentality that I've been raised with. And then all of a sudden, just like one moment, everything changed. So if you don't have that, you can't have that conviction, that belief, that persistence as a salesperson, that you need to be a successful salesperson. Like you have to be forward. You have to be persistent. There was this saying that I heard once that timid salespeople have skinny kids. Because if you're not just forward and convinced that this is the right thing for them and doing everything in your power, answering every question, taking every road that you need to lead them down this path that will make sense for them, maybe sales just ain't for you. And that's why I believe that everybody has an opportunity in sales, in some industry. And ours is a great example because we've brought in people in from every background you can possibly imagine and help them see success here. But not everybody is willing to overcome their insecurities and this perception of salespeople and be forward and convicted, even if they have every other aspect of the business lined up and the belief and the culture and the product. If they're not willing to actually put in the work to do it, to become that professional, there's a lot of people that just squander in sales and have the same opportunity that you and I did, but they just can never get there.
Yeah, I always like to leave whatever presentation knowing that I did everything that I could do to get the customer their product, whatever product that may be. I wouldn't want to have the woulda, coulda, and shoulda. If I would have said this, I could have said that. I should have said that. As long as I leave knowing that I did everything that I possibly could to help that customer, to help that prospect, I can leave feeling good, and I can take that positive energy onto the next one. Yeah. But if you leave and you didn't satisfy all those things, you didn't do everything you could to help that customer, then you've got that negativity that you have to deal with and overcome it before you can go to the next one.
And it's just hanging over your head.
It's just hanging over your head. You're like me. I really didn't help those people out. I showed them all these issues and I didn't solve their problems for them. Yeah. And then, it's easy to get down on yourself, but I mean, there's ways to overcome that. As far as leaving your baggage at the door, it's easier said than done.
It is.
People say, oh, leave your baggage at the door. Well, you don't know what's going on with your personal life or at home, whether it's money issues, family issues, whatever the case may be. But you really do have to leave that down and got to concentrate on the task at hand, as that's helping the customer right there in front of you.
Yeah. One of the things that comes to mind when you talk about that is the preparation. We talked a little bit about preparation. But one of the things that I see happen in sales and in many industries is that people show up and they do the minimums. And whether it has anything to do with, the culture or their background, I think that what separates the people that are really professionals is the work that they're willing to put in outside of just regular business hours. Because me and you both know people that are just talented. Like they can come in, you put a script in front of them, and within like a matter of hours, they're better than 90% of everybody in the industry. It's just some people have some natural gifts.
True, yeah.
But then there's the other 90% that have to work for it. And then maybe they have some talents and some good looks and charisma. But then for me, I had to work my ass off to learn the word tracks, to get confident, to be able to talk in a way that was conducive for a good sales experience. But I see a lot of people that come in and just go through the motions. And there's a good culture to be a part of, and there's a good environment, and they've got a good system, and they just come in and do the bare minimum. So what would you say to those people, and what would you say was a representation of what your path looked like to get good at sales?
Well, I mean, the people that do the bare minimum, they weren't all in it to begin with, I believe. With me, I wanted to learn more. I wanted to be better. I had the desire to better myself so I could better my profession. And you really just can't light a fire into someone and make them have that. They have to have that on their own, or you've got to help them experience or understand that so that they can get that feeling and then go out and gather that information. It's not just the information, it's the implementation of the information, right? So people can be surrounded by all the information, but if they're not absorbing it and then using that information, then it's useless. It's worthless, right? So for me, I wanted it. I was absorbing it like a sponge. And not everybody has that desire. A lot of people go into it thinking that it's just another job or it's just another place.
Do you feel like you had that from the beginning? When I started with
no, I didn't have it from the beginning when I started with Kirby. No, Kirby changed me. I was a carpenter. I didn't think that I would ever be in sales, to be honest with you.
You don't feel like you had that hunger, that curiosity, like that natural drive to go and learn more?
That I did, because when I was in construction, I always wanted to do better. I always wanted to learn more. So I'm sorry, I guess I didn't understand it completely. Absolutely, I did. I always want to be the best, or better than everyone else in everything that I've done. So even in construction. So when I saw that in Kirby, the product and everything, I just wanted it that much more. I wanted to be that much better. I wanted to have. I didn't want to go in there half-cocked, not being able to answer a question. I always felt like I'd want to be able to answer every question. I want to be as knowledgeable as possible. Not that I would use all that knowledge every time, but just have that knowledge as a resource. So if it ever did come up, I'd be able to.
So where do you think it came from? Because one of the things that I'm, as a leader, we all try and figure out what are people's triggers? Like what is going to inspire them? Some people don't come in out of the gate and just have this drive and this curiosity and this hunger for more information. They want to get better, and they're just so intentional about it. Like some people have at that stage. Like when you came in here to JKR Windows, you had that, and you're so humble. And with all of your experience, you're still just so hungry for any bit of value that you can get from anybody around you and gathering as much information as possible, as quick as you possibly can. But like what created that? Like before you got in to Kirby, where did it come from? Was it your upbringing? Was it these examples in your life? Was it, were you an immigrant? Like, where does it come from?
It could have been from my experiences in life, being an extrovert as opposed to an introvert. I went to 16 different schools before I graduated. My father worked big construction, and we'd move from town to town. So I'd either make friends at school or, sit in my corner and not know anybody. So I think maybe my upbringing or my childhood, because like I said, I went to 16 different schools before I finally graduated. So I'd either go out and meet people and talk to people. And I found that humor was a great way to break the ice. So I definitely use humor when I'm out there talking to my customers or people.
Yeah.
And to be the best at school as well. So when I was in school, every different school that I'd have to go to, it's like I was starting over, but I had to catch up and get there. So it would. And I didn't like failure, even at a young age. Maybe I didn't realize the ramifications of failure at that time, but I just didn't like failing or feeling inadequate, I guess. And then when I got out into the the working world, it just transferred on into my jobs that I've had.
Yeah.
So that's a tough question to answer.
It is, right? Because it's like,
because you really don't isolate that. You don't think about where it came from or where it originated. You just go with it. But realizing it, not everybody has that from the beginning.
Yeah, nobody was just like has this clear picture of where it all came from. Because I have some natural work ethic and common sense and ability to figure things out. That if I think back through my childhood and how I was brought up and being the oldest brother and my dad a carpenter, you can kind of tie it to a couple of things that all accumulated to create this version that's prepared you for life in different situations. But now, how do you inspire somebody who may have not had a similar background, who didn't have good examples in their life, who didn't have those types of experiences bouncing from school to school and having to adapt and being forced to and choosing to use that as an opportunity to just make the best of it? So how do you inspire somebody? Or is it possible to take somebody and have them develop that?
It's difficult. I mean, you try to put yourself in their shoes at once because nobody wears the same pair of shoes. So you try to, see where they came from, what their goals, desires, beliefs are, whether they have any, and then go from there. Everyone's different. So you would take each situation as it were. I mean, I've trained a lot of different people with a lot of different skill sets, mindsets, beliefs, or abilities. Mm-hmm. And it's different. So I really don't know the exact answer to that one. That's a tough one.
That is a tough one, huh?
But I've trained people that have less ability than me to begin with, and they've done better than myself. So how I've done that, I really didn't have a game plan or a set plan to do that. It just happened.
Yeah, sometimes it works.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it has to do with how ready that person is, how coachable they are, how driven that you can help them become, even if they don't start out driven. Like one of the definitions of a leader is inspiring somebody to do something that they wouldn't normally do on their own.
Leading by example. Don't expect them to do anything that you wouldn't done or haven't done on your own. And I mean, that's been powerful as far as people listening to me when I say something. Yeah. They're like, well, okay, well, he's done it, so maybe, I should follow it.
Carries a lot of weight.
Yeah. So I think that's been one of my biggest assets as far as training and developing people throughout the years.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the reason that came up is because, with JKR Windows, we have a lot of people come through the doors. And this is an incredible opportunity. We've been able to see so many success stories and people from all kinds of different backgrounds, from construction and never having done sales, restaurant industry, medical sales or medical industry, and coming from being a nurse or working at an office, and being able to plug into a system, an environment, and a culture and see an incredible amount of success. And then there's some people that we bring in that had that same opportunity, but they're just not quite ready. And, it's like we develop relationships with people and we pour everything into them and we want to see them succeed. And then we follow this path of like hoping the best for this person and wanting it almost more than they want it. And there's just no amount of encouraging or recognition or inspiration that you can give that person right then in that moment in time in their life for them to think about it any differently or to respond any differently. I'm sure you've got to experience a little bit of that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they have to have the belief. It's hard to instill the belief into someone that doesn't have it or doesn't want it. And then positivity and negativity have a major factor in it. I mean, if they're negative all the time, have negative feedback their whole lives, it's much more difficult to get them on board than someone that's had more of a positive life or positive feedback. They're going to be more open-minded to it, more receptive, and willing to take what you have and implement it, as opposed to, oh yeah, whatever, I don't believe you, show it to me, prove it to me. Well, you can get exhausted showing and proving to everybody and everything. So they do have to have a little bit of belief in the beginning, and then they've got to move forward with that. They just can't have the information and just let it sit there. So.
Yeah, we call that a ask hole. So instead of an asshole, you got somebody that comes in and seems like they have it all together, and they're asking the right questions. But the one thing that keeps them from being able to reach success is actually implementing anything. like they ask all the right questions and you're giving them the right answers. And it's like, it's so confusing. Like, what are you doing with all the stuff that I'm giving you?
They're like looking for holes, looking for little things. Well, it sounds too good to be true. So instead of all the positive and everything that you're laying out, they're looking for those little gaps, those little things to why it wouldn't be successful. They wouldn't make it, as opposed to what can I do to be successful and to make it. So that's the difference.
Yeah,
I mean,
it is.
And it's hard to instill that in someone, because if they're looking for the negative all the time, they're going to find it.
So now, I'll bet if you look back over your whole sales career and before you even got in sales, you haven't always been like 100% positive and complete belief in yourself. So there's been some ups and downs, some questions.
Absolutely.
Some, maybe, I don't know about you, but I had really colorful background with troubles with the law and drugs and alcohol. And, like I got into all kinds of trouble when I was a kid.
I'm no saint either. So, yeah.
So, but I think the message that I'm trying to get across here is that there's people that are going to be watching this that may be in that position right now, and they want to get involved with sales, or maybe they are involved with sales, but they're right there in the middle of the road, or they're the bottom of the pack, and they've got just as much talent and just as much opportunity as you and I do, but for whatever reason they're not quite ready yet. And I think one of the things that it takes is for you to be self-aware enough to recognize that you're not where you want to be and you've got some work to do, and to flip a switch, to become coachable, to become curious and intentional, and really forward with gathering information. Because it's not like you have to stay one way or the other. Like I wasn't always curious and intentional and trying to do positive shit with my life. At one point, I just got sick of this other way that I was living. And I started to make these small changes in my life with my habits and my beliefs and my thought patterns. And, the things that I thought could be possible for me slowly changed with those things. So for our listeners out there, share with them some of the evolution of Ben Hough as he started to build more confidence in himself and belief and get the negativity and the influences out of his life to be able to have better opportunities and make more income.
Well, I did struggle with alcohol and drugs back in the day. And sometimes you can just get going on a path and you're surviving. I guess I was a working alcoholic. I was making enough money to pay my bills. I had a car, had a house, never had to live on the street. So I never had to hit rock bottom to get there. But I knew that where I wasn't where I wanted to be. And it was going to take more than I was giving as far as effort to get where I wanted to be. And as a young age, everyone, I want to be a millionaire. Well, I made that decision on my own as well, as a kid to become a millionaire. I've yet to do it. I've made $1 million in my life, but not all in one year, right? So what do I have to do? So I guess you have to analyze yourself, and not everyone can do that. Sometimes other people can analyze you and help you get going on the right direction. But for me, first was quitting alcohol. That was the biggest thing. And
how long have you been sober?
For 6 years now.
Wow, me too.
Right on, good job. My wife passed away from cirrhosis of the liver in 2015. We were both drinkers. Wow. And she left me a 9-year-old and a 15-year-old daughter. Okay. And so I've been a single father ever since. So for me, that was the catalyst to kick myself in the ass, because I could have gone on being an alcoholic and probably died like my wife, and then my kids would have had no one else. But not everyone has that catalyst. So you've got to find out what it is for you that gives you that drive and helps you want to reach a goal or to become something in life. I mean, I realized that if I kept going the way that I was going, I'd be nothing more than a functioning alcoholic. That was it. So I just woke up one day and I just quit cold turkey, and my life has changed completely. Wow. I really want to say it's been a 180. Yeah. I've always been fairly good at sales, don't get me wrong, but I could have been so much better if I would have eliminated some of the negativities in my life a long time ago. Yeah. So the key is to find out what's bringing you down, isolate it, eliminate it, and then do what you can to move on, to be better yourself.
And you've got, over the last 6 years, you've done some incredible things. You've done in a very short period of time here with JKR Windows, you've done some incredible things. And I'm looking forward to like continuing to watch you level up and to help you hit your millionaire status. You know, however we do that, whether it's building a team or helping us in leadership or real estate investments, it's still 100% possible for you to have that dream come true, to be a millionaire, to have the assets that you want, to provide the kind of lifestyle and life for your kids that they deserve.
Well, back then a millionaire was a big deal. Now it would have to be a multimillionaire to survive. I mean, realistically,
there's nothing wrong with upping your goals
to make it. So, I mean, I don't mind riding the coattails of you and JKR to get there, maybe opening an office in Colorado or Arizona or whatever it takes.
Yeah.
Because I do still feel that I have a lot to offer, that I can help develop and train people and get people to my level or even higher than my level, which would be an accomplishment in and of itself.
Absolutely. Well, appreciate you coming on, brother. I think it's been amazing catching up with you and getting to know you a little bit better. And to leave everybody with just a final message, I think one of the things that sticks out to me after talking to Ben is you don't have to have a catastrophe happen to you like Ben had. Like that was kind of the catalyst for you to get sober and to start recognizing that you were squandering your potential and your life and your opportunities to alcohol. And I did the same thing. And for me, it was, I did hit a rock bottom that I consider my rock bottom, but it wasn't like this catastrophic moment that took something away from me. And thank God it didn't, because it could have been me killing somebody in a car accident or losing my family, which I was really close to doing. But the key is that what Ben did is he recognized that wasn't something he wanted to tolerate in his life anymore. He wanted to be a better example for his kids. He wanted to have the energy for life to be the father that they deserved. And you made the change. Yeah. And you can make the change. Like just recognize that this isn't where you want to be. It's something that you no longer want to tolerate in your life, just like me and Ben did, and start making those changes. Maybe you're already in the vehicle that you can take advantage of to start living up to your potential. You just got to make these small little tweaks. It doesn't have to happen all at once. You just start making these little changes, start working in that direction so you can have a better life. You can make more income. You can provide a better quality of life for yourself and build assets and build wealth. And it is possible for you, 100% possible. You just got to start small, start making the progress one step at a time. Thank you for checking in for another episode of Just Real Quick. Until next time, me and Ben are out of here.